Good evening, Dr. Shah, and also Dr. Net, and also my friend from Thailand and also from Taiwan. Uh, this evening, I'm going to present about the acetic and propionic acid in the diet on ruminant performance. I'm thinking to present this because maybe the not maybe, but I hope in the next future it can help me to understand what's going on my research experiment. If there are any result that can be uh, already conclude and already get the statistic result. At least for myself, still need to read and understand about this part. And during this presentation, I follow this outline, which is an introduction. And for the performance, I'm looking for the milk yield as another performance that will be observed. And another thing is body weight, feeding behavior, digestibility, methane, and the last one is conclusion. So basically, for the acetic acid and propionic acid, it has another name, acetic acid. They can call acetate, or they make abbreviation as C2. And also propionic acid, they has another name like propionate, and they have abbreviation like C3. Both of them are major volatile fatty acid that resulted from diet fermentation in the rumen. It is a source of energy in the ruminant, as they provide 70 to 80% of the body's energy need and aid in the growth and production performance. So dealing with the acetic and propionic acid in the normal situation in the ruminant body, we can look the schema or metabolism or the pathway of the acetic and propionic acid starting from the diet that we provide to the ruminant. Basically, there are two types of the diet, which is forage and grain, and which is come from the rawhage and the concentrate. When the both of diet come to the rumen, then the fermentation activity from the microbe will happen. Then it will break down the cellulose and semicellulose, hemicellulose, which come from rawhage, and the starch, which is come from the concentrate. Then this bacteria or microbe will convert this kind of the cellulose and hemicellulose and also starch to become glucose, and then it's also will convert to the VFA or volatile fatty acid. And during this activity, also another product like the gas also will produce, and also lactate. In the rumen, when the acetate, propionic, and the butyric already produced, then it will be absorbed by the rumen wall. When the it will when the acetate and propionic and the butyrate already absorbed in the rumen wall, then it will go to the portal blood, and after that, those blood will come to the liver. So in the liver, we can see here that the butyrate will convert to body ketone and propionate will convert to the glucose through the gluconeogenesis process, and it will go to the blood, and in general situation, it will go to the many part of the body. According to this schema, we can see that those product from the acetate, propionate, and then butyrate will go to become energy in the muscle, and also it can be fat triglyceride to adipose tissue, and it can go to the mammary gland for the milk and the component of milk. So from this schema, another research try to identify what is the really effective, what is the really effect of the acetic and propionic acid if we provide those synthetic acid and propionic acid on the milk yolk. So according to this reference for the acetate, we know that if we provide the acetate in the ruminant animal, then we will find that the fat content of the milk slightly hikes. And this is indicated that acetate has effect on the fat content, but it seems like it doesn't have effect on the milk yield based on this experiment, and also for the protein. If we back to the old reference, 1967, uh, try to identify the effect of the acetic acid, propionic acid, and the butyric acid. So in this case, we will find the situation a little bit different. So if we provide the acetic acid in the diet here, uh, then we will find the milk production seems little bit higher compared with the control treatment for all the acetate, propionic, and butyric. However, the acetate, again, it provides a high fat content compared with the propionic acid. And we can see here the propionic acid show the lowest fat content. However, even the propionic acid show the low fat content, it seems like it has high in the solid non-fat and also protein in this case. And another statement from the Bowman et al. 1970 mentioned that the main substrate for the de novo synthesis of fatty acid in the dairy cow is acetyl CoA originating from the acetate. So acetate provides the majority of the carbon and approximately one half of the reducing equivalent in ADPH needed for the de novo lipogenesis through isocitrate pathway, with remaining in ADPH coming from glucose metabolism through pentosa phosphate pathway. I think this seems like they happen in the TCA cycles. In the previous slide, we talked about the acetic acid, and now we move in the propionic acid. According to this reference, infusing the propionic acid in the ruminant, P is the propionic acid, PP is mixed propionic with the butyrates, and B is the butyric acid. And then we find that if we provide the propionic infusion in this case, it seems like the milk production is getting higher and more highest one compared with the other acid. However, the fat content, again, it's become the lowest one. And another positive effect by infusing the propionic acid is milk and lactose here seems like the highest compared with the other one. If we look at more, but according to this reference, providing the propionic acid on the individual fatty acid, it will change the proportion of C carbon, like the C4, C6, and CX. In propionic acid seems like the lowest one compared with the others experiment, compared with other treatment. And besides for the milk fatty acids, in the next slide, we will find that the plasma amino acid concentration in the jugular vein from the propionic seems like had a significant effect compared with others, like the leucine, isoleucine, tryptophan, valine, and glycine here. So if you look at from the correlation coefficient between milk composition and volatile fatty acid in the rumen fluid and blood constituent, we will find that each acid seems like they have a positive and negative correlation. As we can see in the first red line here, the acetic acid has a positive coefficient correlation with the fat. However, the propionic acid has negative correlation with the fat. Another thing for the protein, it has the opposite situation. For the protein, acetic acid seems like so the negative effect on the negative effect on protein, but it will increase the proportion of the protein for the propionic acid. For the casein, because casein is a part of the protein in milk, so we will find the same result as the protein itself. Then acetic acid will have a negative correlation with the casein, and propionic will have positive correlation. And the lactose here has a opposite situation. Acetic acid seems like have negative correlation with lactose, and propionic acid has a positive correlation with lactose. So it's I hope it can make me at least more understand about how the positive and negative correlation between the acetate and propionic acid on the milk composition and milk yolk. Uh, as we know that the propionic acid and acetic acid is the short chain fatty acid, and the short chain fatty acid also serve as a building block for the milk synthesis. Acetate is necessary in the formation of the milk fat, while the propionate is used for glucose production, which is needed for the synthesis of milk sugar. So in ruminant, propionate is also major substrate for the hepatic gluconeogenesis. A decreased ratio of glucogenic propionate to the lipogenic acetate and butyrate acid in ruminal VFA can decrease the production of liver glucose supply to the mammary gland, and lactose and milk synthesis in high-yield dairy cows. If we previous slide we talk about the effect acetic and propionic acid on the milk yield and milk composition. Then starting this slide we talk about the acetic and propionic acid on the body weight. If we look at from this table, we will find that effect of dietary acetate and propionic acid on feed intake and weight gain on growing lambs. According to this reference, seems like acetic and propionic acid doesn't have a significant effect on the body weight of the growing lambs. As we can see here, they show that the average dairy gain here is almost the same and doesn't have any significant. They use 1.7 gram per 100 gram of diet as feed in this treatment. And now the effect of the acetate and propionate in the cows for the body weight. This result show the different things with the previous slide. As we can look from this slide, the acetate and propionate show the negative or decreasing the body weight compared with the control treatment. And we can see here that the propionate show the lowest decreasing body weight compared with the acetate, or we mix the acetate with the propionate in this case. And then another thing is from the Elliott et al. 1965. They also provide the propionate and acetate in the basal diet here. And we, according to this reference, this is the animal is lamb here. The animal is lamb, and according to this reference, so that the no significant effect on this case. So before we going this, maybe from the first slide, I just want to make emphasis to myself, at least the acetate and propionic acid on the body weight seems like this. So not consistent results. Some results show that doesn't have any significance, but another experiment show that it can decrease the body weight. And now talking about the acetate and propionic acid on feeding behavior. If you look at this table, we will find that the effect of isocaloric abomasal infusion of volatile fatty acid as free fatty acid on salt, on feed intake and blood parameter. They use a control sodium acetate, sodium propionate, and acetate, propionic, and butyrate as a treatment. If you look at on the feed intake, I noticed that the providing the acetate and propionic seems like it will decrease the feed intake compared with the initial feeding. And if we look at from the sodium, I mean this sodium acetate and then the sodium propionate, we will find that the decreasing feed intake is less rather than pure acetic, propionic, and butyric acid if we look at from here. So the acetate and propionic and butyric acetate and propionic acid seems like the decrease more than 300 gram in this case. But if we provide the sodium here, the decrease of the feed intake is less than the 50 gram. Another experiment, Laura and Ellen 2018, use another method to identify the effect of acetate, and in this case is acetic acid in the ruminant, in the cows in here. So what they are doing is they make cannula and infuse those kind of the acetate in the rumen and in abomasum. And we can see from here, if we comparing the control, both in the rumen and in abomasum, so that the dry matter intake is decreased in this case. And the consequence also is in line with the water intake in this case is also decreased. So acetic acid both in rumen and abomasum is decreasing the feed intake and water intake. But in here, if we comparing rumen and abomasum itself, the dry matter intake, if we put it on the rumen, get the lowest dry matter intake and also water intake if we compare in the abomasum. Acetate is produced and absorbed in the greatest quantity of all VFA, and it may play major role in the control of meal size. Intraruminal injection of acetate solution of various concentration before or during scheduled meal depress feed intake in cattle, sheep, and goat, according to this reference. And the injection into dorsal area of rumen had a greater effect in the intake than injection in the ventral rumen, reticulum, or abomasum. Now we talk about the effect of propionic acid on the feed intake before we talk about the acetic acid on the feed intake. On propionic acid, according to this reference, so the same thing with the acetic acid. If we provide the infusion of the propionic acid to the ruminant, we will find that the dry matter intake, meal frequency, and also water intake is in line, decrease compared with the control in this case. But they try to identify effect by fast and slow. FST is fast and SLW is the slow infusion. And they'll find that fast and slow infusion doesn't have any significance. But infusion, comparing the control, it has a significant effect and decrease the dry matter intake and water intake in this case. And according to this reference, if we increase the propionate fraction of the total VEVA infused, then we will find that more higher propionate that will provide to the ruminant, then the dry matter intake will become lower, as we can see from here. And of course, is another thing, like the metabolized energy intake also become decreased by increasing the propionate fraction, and also activity like chewing and then ruminating. And it's in line with the water intake, drinking bowl, and drinking interval. Another reference, try to identify effect of acetate and propionic acid in low forage and high forage. In low forage and high forage here, we will see that for the dry matter intake also show the same thing, where the dry matter intake and organic matter is become decreased compared with the high forage and also low forage. But it has effect on the fat content here. If we provide the acetate in the high forage, then it seems like the fat content seems like the increase. So if we comparing acetate and propionate itself, in the previous slide, we already mentioned that both acetate and propionate, if we compare with control, it will decrease the dry matter intake. But if we comparing acetate and propionate, according to this reference, we will find the situation where the propionate will get more in depressing dry matter intake, and also activity for the ruminating and eating. So for both this kind, for acetate and propionate, seems like the propionate is get more effect to reducing dry matter intake compared with the acetate. And now we move to the acetate and propionic acid on the digestibility. So if we look at this reference, if we provide the acetate or acetate and propionate in high forage, we will find the situation for the nutrient digestibility. I notice it seems like the digestibility is higher compared with the low forage and the high forage. So I notice maybe we can say this is another positive side, that if we provide a high acetate or propionate in high forage ratio, in the digestibility here is higher compared with the low forage and the high forage. And then in the 1967, another researcher tried to identify the effect of dry matter consumption and the apparent digestibility. They using the animal is cow in here to detect what kind of the effect of the digestibility from the treatment with its control. They provide the 2% of acetic acid, 1% butyric acid. They mix 2% acetate and 1% butyric acid, and they increase the volume of the acetate being 4% and 2% for the butyric acids. From this digestibility, I noticed that the 2% of acetic acids, according to this reference, show the highest consumption of the digestibility, dry matter consumption, compared with others one. Even compare with control and then compare with the butyric acid, it doesn't have a significant. But if we compare it with the 4% acetic acid and 2% butyric acid here, very different, where the highest acetic acid show the lowest dry matter consumption compared with others. And the gross energy from the 2% acetic acid seems like also higher in this case. However, another reference show the different things. If in previous slide, when they give the acetate, the digestibility from the dry matter is higher, but here the dry matter is become negative in all the component for the acetate and propionate. But the energy seems like the highest compared with control. However, all the result is not significant in this case. And then for the pH, according to this reference, fortunately they didn't explain about the reason, but we found the situation where the pH in this case is also doesn't have any significant, and seems like the show the highest being little bit higher, being higher than the normal. However, both acetate and propionate in this case is not significant compared with the control. And then for the digestibility from the Elliott 1965, we will find almost the same thing. Propionate and acetate, it's so the according to this table, so didn't have any significance on the digestibility of the total digestible nutrient and digestible energy. But if you look at the data, seems like the alpha-alpha and propionate so little bit higher on dry matter. So this is the different also with the previous experiment. However, still not significant in this case. And then the last one is talking about the effect of acetate and propionic acid on the methane. According to the Holter et al. 1972, they provide the animal with the acetate mixed with the propionate, and then the propionate itself I noticed that the methane energy in this case is decreased in all the treatment for the acetate and propionic. However, the methane energy in those treatment doesn't have significant, but tend to decrease compared with the control one. And then the last one, the Armstrong and Blackster et al., they provide the mean intake of energy as gross calorie for 24 hour and also loss in the phases. Calorie for 24 hour and mean apparent absorption of dietary energy. And we will find the situation where they do by the sip in here. The sip receiving infusion water of solution acetate, propionic, and butyric acid into rumen. So they find, according to this reference, that the vessel loss of the energy doesn't have any significant based on this treatment. They provide 10 gram of hay, so and they provide the 400 calorie for 24-hour acetate or butyrate or propionic acid in the 1 gram of hay, and they didn't find any significant result based on this reference. So for the last slide, the conclusion that we can conclude that generally acetic acid tend to increase milk fat substantially, while the propionic acid tend to increase milk yield, milk protein, lactose, or solid non-fat fraction, and occasionally reduce milk fat. I noticed that the infusing amount of acetate and propionic acid tend to decrease diameter intake and metabolize energy, and also drinking behavior linearly. The amount, site, and method of application volatile fatty acid, which is acetate or propionic acid, are important factor to determining the effect of the VFR on the feed intake. Another thing is the oral administration. Acetate and propionic acid have less effect in reducing dry matter intake compared with the infusion method. So this is the last of my presentation for this evening. Thank you for listening and watching.
Any question, comments, suggestion from anyone?
Yes, thank you, Aswah, for your presentation. I have one question about it. What is the relationship between sodium and acid? Because I have one result that you showed.
Thank you, Ned.
Okay.
Maybe
Yes, this one. Yes, thank you.
If we look at this table, my opinion is if we provide the sodium in this case, it seems like it can be act as a buffer. Maybe it can be act as a buffer. Then the consumption or the feed intake it will be not decrease is very much. It's very low compared with the pure acetic, propionic, and butyrate. So I'm thinking that maybe it seems like a buffer. So if we provide the acetate with the sodium in this case, then the decreasing of the feed intake is not too low compared with the pure acetate and propionic.
If you consider as a buffer, so that is mean they will increase food intake. Is that right? just something like a sodium bicarbonate. So in this case, they will reduce the food intake.
Yes, Dr. Shah. I'm just noticed that why I'm thinking like that, because if we comparing with the control here, in the control also, the feed intake is decreased. But decreasing feed intake comparing control when the comparing with the sodium is not significant. And in the score here, we can find that there's some like the natrium in the propionic seems like the feed intake is not much compared with control. So I'm
But
thinking,
if you compare the sodium acetic acid with acetic acid itself,
yes, acetic acid itself.
so they will increase a lot of food intake.
They will increase.
4.2 compared with 46.7 minus, So that means sodium still improve the food intake.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
Means here is mean feed intake, right? The number here means here.
Which mean? Yes, mean you mean.
Like for experimental, the mean here is like for feed intake, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here is a change. They change the food intake. Sodium acetic acid will not change big food intake. But acetic itself will change food intake a lot. Am I right? I think it's right.
Yes.
So in the future, when we compare something, we need to jump, not only see compare with the control, but also with itself, sodium acidic, compare with acidic treatment. Okay, any other question, comments, or suggestion? Chat.
Thank you, Aswah, for your presentation. My question is on slide 18. Slide 18. In this second sentence, you said like injection into the dorsal area of the rumen
You
head.
are close to your microphone, but otherwise the echo is too big. Sorry.
In second sentence, it says the injection into the dorsal area of the rumen had a greater effect on intake than injection into the ventral rumen. Right? What is the reason? Can you explain more about that one?
One of the paper that I read, they said that but they didn't explain specifically in this case, but they just mentioned that the rumen itself, in the rumen itself, it seems like has a sensor to detect it seems like in the rumen itself it has a sensor to detect, I mean the rumen wall, it has a sensor to detect the satiety the satiety of the animal, whether the animal uh, will be hungry or not in this case. So, but that is my explanation, Chat. But if I just look from like, whether I have, oh no, where is body weight? Okay, in this case. So, oh yeah, this, Laura and Alto says. So, in this case, they put the acetic acid they infuse the acetic acid in the rumen and then in albumasum, and they found that if we infuse the acetic acid in the rumen, and the dry matter intake will decrease a lot compared with the increase if we infuse in the albumasum. One of they said that because in the rumen itself, it has rule to control the satiety of the animal, whether the animal will be uh, hungry or not before this signal come to the central nervous system. But specific for the dorsal area in the rumen had greater effect. I think I need to get more information, but the point just like that. So.
But the problem is, if you consider like this way, and then we will have lots of confused, because if you provide the roughage to the diodes, and then they will produce more acetic acid. So the older hypothesis is said that if you provide a roughage, they produce acetic acid, and then they will produce more fat. But in your explanation said if you provide more acidic, they will stimulate them eat less. And so what is the relationship between the roughage and the acetic acid? Can you understand what I mean? Because if you're only thinking about the acetic acid, you are easy to explain. But if you consider about the roughage increase the acetic acid, then you will have some kind of difficulty to explain these kind of things. And another thing is, why we're using acetic acid is because another thing is whether the acetic acid will kill the bacteria, lumen bacteria. That is another important thing. Okay, so maybe in the future, when Neolita finish the first step of experiment, you can use the cannula to try to get some kind of lumen content, and then add the acetic acid to see whether they will kill this bacteria or not, because you can easily to calculate the total microorganism in the lumen content. Can you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yes. So maybe we can also try to understand, because acetic acid if they can kill the bacteria, and what does that mean? Really means the roughage will produce more acetic acid, and the acetic acid will kill the bacteria, and then what is the relationship between this? I don't know. I don't understand. Can you see what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So think about this, because all these things maybe nobody thinking before. Why I can think about this is not because I'm good on the ruminant nutrition. It's because I'm good on the monogastric animal nutrition. Monogastric animal nutrition, if you provide more acidic, they will kill the bacteria. Is that right? Usually acid will kill the bacteria. But how about in this kind of situation? I don't know. Okay? Yeah. Any other question, comment, suggestion from Neolita?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm sorry. Thank you for the presentation. Would you please come back to page, I'm sorry, table 5. Here I'm curious about the the correlation between the ruminant VFR infusion with the plasma amino acid concentration. Would you please explain it?
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm To be honest, I'm not sure about this, but I just want to share my opinion. In the previous slide that you asked, acetic acid will affect on the amino acid in the blood. So I'm thinking that how it can be like that is maybe during the absorption of the acetate in the rumen in this area, then it's come to the portal blood and come to the liver.
Oh no, you better don't explain like this way. You better to explain if you produce a lot of acidic or you add acidic, they will influence on the stomach, true stomach. And once they influence on the true stomach, they will increase the absorption of amino acid in the intestine. This is from the monogastric animals principle to explain this. It's not from the pure ruminant nutrition to explain this. Okay, that is why I suggest maybe in the future in your experiment also need to consider about this part, because if you can thinking about the acetic acid influence on the not propionic acid, okay, it's acetic acid, it can influence on the amino acid absorption, and then this is maybe another interesting things. Okay, can you see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so maybe we can find, because you know at the moment all your study is different from the people study in the early stage, early time they always can find some kind of easy way to do experiment, but now many experiment you need to find out the why and try to find out some kind of explanation. Okay, so maybe we can find this part too. Okay, and another thing is during your experiment in growing stage, you can find if you add acetic or propionic acid, their growth rate is not so good. That is maybe that is also mean they are not improve the satiety, improve the food intake. I'm not quite sure, but how about in your experiment, whether they have the same food intake or they will reduce the food intake?
In the experiment that I calculate the average, seems like the feed intake for the acetate particularly seem like doesn't have any significance with the control. But if we comparing in the high temperature, acetic acid is little bit higher compared with the control treatment.
Okay, remember this is a key point for your further experiment. Please mention to me when we are doing the other experiment. Can you see what I mean?
Yes.
Because if under the heat stress situation, whether the acetic acid is have a benefit or not a benefit, this is become very important one. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. News. Net. The tigers called New, is that right?
Yes.
New.
Yeah.
New.
Yes,
Uh,
I'm new.
mm.
Yes, I have one question. Thank you for your presentation. Why the acetate have the effect on the eating behavior more than the propionate in the page 12? Page
Page 12.
please.
Page.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, it's table 12 or page 12? Can you next to in the behavior table?
The behavior table. Check.
Yes. Previous.
Oh, this one. On what? I will check on the behavior. This is feeding behavior. Okay.
Yes.
I think this one.
Yes. Why the acetate have the effect on eating behavior more than the propionate? Could you explain it for me, please?
One of the reason they say that the propionate give more suppression on the rumen when we infuse in when give more suppression on the feed intake when we infuse into the rumen. So in this case, we will find that the propionic get more effect on decreasing feed intake compared with acetate. And then another thing I'm thinking like oh yes, maybe another thing I'm thinking that this is not mentioned in the paper, but I'm thinking I don't know whether my opinion is right or no. Maybe professor will give some comment because the production and the utilization of the acetate comparing with the propionate is more faster compared with the acetate. Then it will be more faster and it will more faster to be used in the rumen. So in the ruminant, then the effect from this kind of the production of the propionate, it will be give more effect rather than in acetate.
I'm not quite sure. But in this case, maybe you also need to be thinking it. Try to go to the feed mill again. To have a smell on the acetate and the propionate. I'm not because Susu is not here, so I need to know which one make you feel more sting.
For me, propionic is make me more headache compared with the acetate. For me.
Oh, okay. So it's clear because propionic acid, if their smell is not good, and so their eating behavior should be lower. Eating behavior sometimes is not related with food intake. Okay, so they have two explanations. The one explanation is if the smell is too strong, they were eating fast. So the total eating time is less, but they are eating the same amount. And another one is if their smell is too If their food intake is lower, then you will say their smell is too strong, so they refuse to eat more. So they have two explanations from behavioral point of view. Can you see what I mean?
Yes.
So think about this. You can do a very simple experiment in the near future, during after during or after experiment. You only need to do several 4 animals and then give them feed intake. Compare feed intake experiment, just like Ned did it before. So you can doing like this kind of things in your in compared to these two on the food intake. Can you see what I mean? Because at the moment you need to put your goat or sheep into calorimetry chamber. So after you put your goat into calorimetry chamber, you need to immediately reduce lighting system, and or slowly releasing the lighting system, because if you do not reduce the lighting system, they will not become heat. This is a very dangerous thing. And if they do not become the heat, and then they will get a problem of consumption rate. Can you see what I mean?
Yes, Dr.
So be careful, very careful, when you are put this animal into the calorimetry chamber. When they come out, they are doing this kind of reduce lights at the same times, and then continue to reduce to certain low level, for example 8 hours or something like that. That's easy for you in the calorimetry chamber, and then you introduce the work, the male one inside, and then in the group situation, it's not in the individual situation. And be careful, you also need to think about how to make them in group, because if you release them inside of the calorimetry chamber, they maybe will have a little bit of fighting. And this kind of fighting, you have to be careful to watch. Okay, and once they are reduced fighting to the minimum, and then the light to the minimum. You know the goat is a short light animal, so they will become heat. So in this case, you can try to introduce the male bug into the pen, and once you introduce a bug into the pen, they will have a conception. Be careful about this, because if you cannot doing very well, and then your conception rate is very low, and then you will have less animal to do for you to do the milk productions experiment. Can you understand?
Yes.
Well, be careful all about this, step by step. Okay, step by step. Okay, so try to finish the calorimetry chamber first, and then go to reduce the lights, and then release them becomes group, and then let them used to the group. Why let them group? Can you explain to me why let them in group?
Because the bug will get more. The bug will get more access to mating the female.
Yes, right. This is a good answer. So you better to let them in the group, and then you have to let them put into them. Usually need about 40 days. That is a 2 cycle. Okay, at the beginning they will have 5 days. They will become heat, but this kind of heat is pseudo. So they call the pseudo heat. It's not a true heat, and then the next one will become heat, and then the next one will become heat. So it's about 45 days. You put them in there, and I hope all of them can be concept. And after 21 days, you better to ask Susu to help you to check whether they are pregnant or not using the ultrasonic machine, okay, which Ned did before when she was here. Okay, so please, doing all these kind of things so you can know whether they will conception or not, and then it make you more easy to do the experiment, the next steps experiment. And during this period, if we have more male or female, that doesn't matter. We can doing some comparison feed intake, compare there between the control and the acetic and the propionic acid treatment, and to see whether they are eating fast or eating slow or eating total the fixed amount of the feeds, and then let them to eat. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe this kind of small experiment can help you a lot in explanation, and also can, I hope this kind of small experiment can also become a paper. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 伟俊有没有什么意见？
这个我有这个一点。
是，请说。
Okay, excuse me.
Yes,
I think here eating behavior is not big different, but maybe because of feeding behavior in acetate group, they have high diameter intake, and then they will have more ruminating, and also they have increased water intake.
Yes, isn't it? You're right. That is a linear correlation between diameter intake and then the eating and the ruminating. More higher diameter intake, then the eating activity is more longer, and also, of course, the ruminating.
But be careful. Here is like this way, but in your experiment, you said there is no difference.
For the high temperature, Dr. Hsia.
No difference.
Seems like no different in high temperature.
Okay, so be careful about all these kind of things. You can do it both in the high and low on food intake. Because high temperature, I do believe nobody did before to compare the acetic and the propionic. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other question, comments, or suggestion? Can we have a suggestion? Said Susu should become next time.
She's here.
I'm here.
Where? Where?
Just here.
Where is it here?
Just in my room. I
But
don't be around
okay, but I cannot see your picture.
But I can see myself.
Oh, okay. Okay. Because my picture, you are hiding behind my picture. Any other question, comments, or suggestion? Okay, the final things I want to talk is because the semester is start from yesterday. Okay, so we need to have a new semester. The student from the my group, so be careful about the new group. You have to read the papers, and the textbook I already provided for you. Susu, is that right? Okay, so please everyone be careful to read about that. Another one, growth and development, we will have a class. Okay. So the new semester, the first 2 weeks, according to the university said, is a online remote course. Afterwards, I think the university will consider about all these things. Okay, seems is okay now, but still need to be careful. And so the young people, I'm not saying that's why you are old. Okay, you are still young. The young people like Wei Jun and the Chet, be careful not to go outside too much. So you will not get any kind of this kind of disease. Okay, Chou is go outside, but be careful to wear your mask always. And the Thai student knew, please wear your mask. I understand in your country at the moment the thing is getting serious, even worse than Taiwan. So be careful about this. Ned, please be careful about this. Okay. Oh, the student.
Red zone now, right now in Chiang Mai.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so everyone remember, be careful about this. Another thing is why we have this kind of seminar. I try to repeat it again, because this seminar is not only for your practical. Okay, so practical by you, and so you can give a presentation. You can have a well prepared. Okay, in the future you can, if you're talking this topic today, and in the future you may find more topic, and you can talking again. Doesn't matter. But you need to collect more information. So the first one is collect more information and try to practical yourself. Can be present, give a presentation in front of many people. This is very important. Okay. Many years ago, I'm really nervous. Okay, when I was young, every time after presentation, I feel thirsty, totally thirsty. That is mean nervous. Okay, but then later I'm only nervous 3 to 5 minutes, and then it's okay. I'm still nervous now. Okay, but I have to say, try to practical. And another thing, 2 things on the practical. So another thing is practical your English, because that is really important one. Pardon? Practice your English, because you know, when I still have an English problem, but anyway, people understand me at the moment. Why? Because I try to speak clearly every word. Also, maybe practice and the practice is different, but the people will understand if you speak individual words clearly. Okay, I can find the people prefer you speak English words by words, not to say no such kind of English speaking method. So please practical these kind of things, and you know, this kind of practical you will help yourself in the future, have a lot, give you a lot of chance. Okay, opportunity. Okay, no matter what kind of English you're speaking. Okay, you can find Nurita and Aswah speaking the Indonesia's English, and of course Professor Watamas and me speak Thai English. Okay, and myself and Susu speak Chinglish. But don't worry about that. That is not really need to worry. The thing is you speak clearly. That is good. We do not have Malaysia student. If you have Malaysia student, they speak very short and not clearly enough. Okay, so this is the 3 things we practical. Okay, please remember this. I really worried people said, why I need to practical, why I need to go to here. If you practical, one day you will practical, one day you will be easy to give a presentation in the international, this kind of presentation. And another most important thing is try to listen the other people's presentation. Okay, don't just feel. That's why I ask you to ask a question. It's not because I try to find you or I hate you. No, not like that way. I ask you ask question is because you try to understand the different people's different thinking, different topic. Okay, you don't need to become expertise on that area. But after you have become master degree or after you become PhD, you can immediately easy to become expertise in that area. Okay, good example is myself. I listening to all my classmates talking about the ruminant nutrition, and everyone speaks very poor English from Sudan, from Malaysia, from the Tanzania, from all these kind of different countries. They speak poor English, but I try to understand. And later, I thought my English no improvement. But when I go back to Taiwan, my friend asked me to ask an interpreter. I certainly can do this kind of interpreter very easily. Okay, so please, listening to everyone's presentation, try to learn from them, because a lot of vocabulary, if you listen to the other people's presentation, you can become familiar with that. And then one day you will easy to catch all these kind of things. Don't think you will become only expertise in your area. You have to become one day when you are old enough, sorry to say that, and then you can become expertise on many things. And then you are easily to do a lot of things. For example, consultant work. Okay, so this is very important. This is not because I listening as was talking and then talk to you, and because that is not also not because I like to talk. Okay, I think Ned always think I like talk. I always say, talk and a lot. It's not like that way. Okay, I have to say, I hope my friends, my student can be great in the future. Okay, so Weijun, don't hiding for the whole summer vacation. Okay,
I'm not hiding for in the summer vacation. I was in the farm intern.
Yes, in the farmer term, still can occasionally to attend. Okay, I'm
okay.
very cruel about these kind of things.
Okay, and I just finished my intern today, so I can still join the seminar.
Okay, and I tell you the things. You still have a right to listening only during this semester, during the second years. But after second year, you have to give presentation. You have to remember. Okay.
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 I got it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you, everyone. Good night. Good night. I'm very terrible teacher. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Bye. Today, Machuki cannot come because he has another meeting. So he told us he cannot come. Okay? So he will come next week. Bye-bye. It's not because Aswah you're talking, so he absent around here. No, it's because he have another meeting. He doesn't know who talk about. Okay. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.